Well, hello, everybody. Welcome back to Radio Entrepreneurs, our streaming version post, we hope, 2020. And we're into 2021. And first, I want to say hello to my co-host, Marc Z from Marc Z Legal Staffing. Welcome, Marc.
Thanks, Jeff. Great to be here.
Great. And, we're pretty excited to get into this segment. It's part two, the impeachment story. And this time, again, we're speaking with Marc Furman, partner, member at the law firm of Tarlow, Hart Rodgers. Welcome back, Marc.
Hi, Jeffrey. Hi, Marc. Great to be with you.
Good morning, Marc.
Marc, it's funny. A lot of people sent me messages based upon the headlines after impeachment, because the headlines were one sentence, and they didn't really look into what was really going on. And, you understand trials, and you understand what trials may be ahead for the previous president. So I was wondering if you could try to unravel some of this for people.
Sure. Well, we just finished the end of a political show trial, is how I think of it. It's not like any trial I've ever been involved in. It's not a legal trial. It's just the political trial. And, at the outset, they debated whether the Senate had the power, the jurisdiction to decide whether to impeach a president who was no longer president, who had left office. And the Senate voted. And by a majority, the Senate decided they had the power to hear the case. So in a courtroom, if the judge decided that a particular court had jurisdiction to hear the case, you couldn't relitigate that issue as part of your jury deliberations. But what happened here is that the folks who opposed there being jurisdiction decided to acquit, for the most part, based upon their own individual determination of whether that there was no jurisdiction, even though the Senate as a whole had decided there was jurisdiction. So whether they had jurisdiction only required a majority vote, but it took a 2/3 vote in order to convict in the impeachment trial. So a similar thing happened, by the way, in the 19th century, when a former cabinet official was impeached, tried in the Senate, and despite very strong evidence, was acquitted based upon the claimed lack of jurisdiction. And it's a political show because there's no appeal. It's whatever the Senate decides to do. So interestingly, what's going on now in the Republican Party among, the efforts to censure folks who voted to impeach Trump in the House, those who voted to convict him in the Senate, those who just voted that there would be jurisdiction in the Senate. It's really a party divided in a way that I don't recall in my lifetime. So, which, believe it or not, has been a while, despite my youthful appearance. So where are we now? We're going to have a bipartisan commission to investigate all the events that happened on January 6th. And that the big part of that is going to be who bears responsibility. So it's going to be about what happened on a security side at the Capitol, but also the reasons that the protesters were there, and then those who broke into the Capitol, and the Confederate flags, and the MAGA hats and all of that. So that's one thing. Then we have a criminal investigation in Fulton County, Georgia, relating to that phone call that Trump made which, I haven't listened to the whole thing, but have listened to excerpts. But, there was the reference to finding a sufficient number of votes to turn the Georgia election, which was very close. We have the, criminal investigation in New York over the Trump organization, the ongoing efforts to obtain their tax records, and from news reports, investigations of financial crimes. And, Mitch McConnell, who, was very, voted to acquit, but very critical of Trump's actions, alluded to potential criminal as well as civil liability relating to the events of January 6th. So this is going to be going on for a long time, folks. It's just, but it, in some of it, I don't think there's a coincidence that you have the investigation as being these two investigations that I'm talking about, the one in Georgia and Fulton County and the one in New York. There are Democratic prosecutors investigating Trump, or the Trump organization. So, look, our country is very much scarred from this whole experience and what happened on January 6th and the view of so many people that our elections are rigged. And now there's going to be more attempts, frankly, to, I think, rig things in more subtle ways. Limiting voter access. The right to vote is going to be a big legislative fight. Who gets to vote, how they get to vote, what kind of identification is required in order to vote, how soon to an election can they vote, is mail-in balloting going to be allowed? It's, the fight is going to continue as, I think the demographics of the country continue to move in the direction that they are.
Marc, I just wanted to follow up because obviously, as you're talking about the legal aspect and the political arena and sort of coming back to the original quote trial, isn't impeachment, when they talked about guilty of high crimes and misdemeanors. So what's amazing to me is when you play the tapes, and obviously you look at a Mitch McConnell who said he's definitely guilty, but I acquitted him because he's now out of office. We have no jurisdiction. Meanwhile, he tabled the trial to after he was out of office. So I know he's walking that, what, Jeff?
Well, that's what Nancy Pelosi said.
Right, is walking the balance. But my question is, and I guess, well, because it's so political in all impeachments we've ever had, but this was one that you had films, and what I question is, you had the word even fight, when one thing is fighting for better healthcare and one is fighting to rebel or
overturn the election.
Overturn the election, overcome the Capitol Police, because they at one point said, we can't hold them off. We need help. We need backup. There was literally a rebellion of people in the Capitol. You have people hiding. You have people in fear for their life, including the vice president. And then you go to a president who it's been documented that said, I will not call them off or didn't respond. So all these are like high crimes and misdemeanors, I think. And then unfortunately it plays out in the political arena.
Marc, I'm all for politics. It's a reality of all organizations. And I like strategy. I sort of feel, looking at the long game, that the Democrats got what they wanted. They knew they were never going to win the vote, but they're looking at that small segment of people who were swing voters, not the diehard Republicans, not the diehard Democrats, who they were able to show a clear message that he was guilty. And so he was being tried in the court of public opinion for that 20-25% of the voter base that I think would watch this and see this. And I also think the long game was really setting up for the next level. And that is criminal proceedings in one state and criminal proceedings in another state, and potentially
Investigation.
more, and investigation.
Too.
And when you see that Trump's revenues are down across the board, and now he's having trouble financing, I really think that the long game is we're going to continue to expose this guy, and we're going to keep putting economic pressure on him, and we're going to make sure that long term he's not a viable candidate, because I think that's the long game. The long game for the Democrats is we don't want him running again, and we're going to do everything we can to discredit him nationally. We understand there's a percentage of Republicans, they're going to like him no matter what, and we've given up on those. It's the other people we want. So I think that's what I'm seeing.
Well, the other thing is, and Mark, I'm going to pass it back to you, but the other thing was they said it was previously, I don't think any opposite party senator had ever voted to impeach their president. Here you got, the previous time you had nobody, and now except obviously Mitt Romney had been involved previously, but here you had 7 Republicans, so they could say it was bipartisan. My question just goes back to you, is at some point, can we ever have sort of a nonpartisan, if we have an impeachment process, because this came pretty close when you had high crimes and misdemeanors to the very foundation of our Constitution, don't you think?
Well, I think what happened with President Nixon became, bipartisan. And so he resigned, and there was no effort made to
Impeach him.
He was going to be impeached if he didn't resign. And from what I've read, a bunch of Republicans went to him and said, you're going to be impeached and you're going to be convicted. You should resign.
Right.
And that's what he did. But, I think that was dirty tricks in an election campaign taken to extreme of breaking in and then covering it up. But this was people breaking into the Capitol building and people calling to hang Pence. This is really unprecedented. But the backdrop is Trump got 74 million votes. And and although there are Republicans who never supported Trump, and there's probably more of them after what happened on January 6th, the base is huge. And I think that is the political tightrope that McConnell and other Republicans are trying to, walk. And, it's just, I don't know if the party can, as divided as it is there going to be, I wonder sometimes there's going to be a new party. I mean, folks that you would assume would have, campaigned for Trump in 2016 and 2020 based upon, party statesmen, I'll call them, major political figures of the Republican Party over a, multi-decade period, just say the Bush family, it's hard to believe that they voted for Trump in either election. I mean, that's a real wing of the party.
Correct.
Moderates. But, you know, I just want to add, I know we've been using up a lot of time. You know, Nancy Pelosi announced that there's going to be further inquiry into this whole riots. And I think that she's looking to develop evidence against certain Congress people and senators who were also aiding this whole process of the rebellion. And they're not going to stop until they get all the facts out. And so this is going to go on, not just for Donald Trump, but there are others who probably did. We know that they were doing tours and they weren't supposed to the day before. And I think this is going to go on for a while because they want the truth. And you know, quite frankly, if my staff was hiding under a desk, worried for their lives, I might do the same thing too. And I think some people forget that. I would get quite angry and very protective.
Absolutely.
Well, the
Absolutely.
video of Romney being redirected by Officer Goodman, who, you know, Romney was walking towards the rioters and Goodman had him turn around. I don't know if you saw that video, but, you know, he would certainly be someone who was in danger during that period of time, based upon the first impeachment trial, as well as, you know, what he has said, had said before this trial. So he was clearly, you know, someone who was going to, who just, you know, he gave a speech that day is what these people need to hear is the truth, that Trump lost the election.
Right. Well, again, I don't think, you know, I don't think this is a mini series. I think this is a long time discussion. There's a lot that plays out. As I said, I think this is a long game and we're going to be watching it for a couple of years. And we appreciate your unraveling it. And especially, you know, up front where you sort of say that this wasn't a trial, it was a political event, and explaining that and explaining the real legal things that are going to be going on. Marc, if someone needs to understand the law better, speak with a young attorney like yourself, how would they find
God
you?
bless you, Jeffrey.
How would they find you? We know you're a Tarlow breed, but what's your contact?
Yes, I can be reached at 617-218-2025. That's my direct line, or at mfurman, Furman, at tbhr-law.com.
Great. We really appreciate it. Marc Z, we're never going to hang up without you also giving us your information. How can we find you?
Well, first you can Google Marc Z, M-A-R-C-Z, and will come up, or marczlegal.com, our website, or 617-338-1300, our phone number. Thank you.
I want to remind everybody, this is Radio Entrepreneurs.